Jason has always been curious about why the other party is willing to trade this Tai Sui wood, but there is not a single elixir in the entire hall to exchange items for it. After doing this for a long time, it turns out that no one present knows the purpose of this Tai Sui wood. As for Hawk's previous hesitation was just because he wanted to give the Tai Sui wood to himself, but he was reluctant to part with his bottle of 5th level spiritual potion. It's no wonder that Hawk was willing to take out the Tai Sui wood. After feeling the doubtful gazes of everyone in the hall, Jason said, "The name of this item is Tai Sui wood. It is a very rare species. It is neither a living thing nor a plant. After being boiled and taken, it can have some effects. It has the effect of prolonging life. If an ordinary person can wear this thing, ordinary illnesses will not come to him at all." Jason did not just make up a reason, but said the real name of Tai Sui Mu, not afraid of them. What will you find out after knowing the name? In fact, this Tai Sui tree is too rare on the mainland. Throughout the history of the entire continent, it has only appeared a few times in total. Most of the historical records of spiritual medicine, there are no Tai Sui wood records, otherwise there would be so many elixir masters from all the northwest countries in the entire hall who would not know each other. After hearing Jason's interpretation of the dance, everyone nodded in sudden realization, and couldn't help but feel they all sighed with emotion. It is good to have a powerful mentor. This Tai Sui Mu, so many masters from the northwest countries in the entire hall could not recognize him, but he, an 18-year-old boy, knew it well. There's a gap. That's it. Then Hawk nodded, took the Tai Sui wood and the bottle of 5th level elixir directly in front of Jason and said, "Master Jason is indeed well informed, and I hope Master will accept this Tai Sui wood." The elixir masters from some small countries nearby looked at Hawk with great envy. These days, they are all trying to find ways to have a good relationship with Jason, but Jason has been hiding in the mansion to practice and never comes out, but it makes them don't know how to start. Now what kind of little trick does Hawk use? Tai Sui Mu made friends with Jason and left a good impression in front of Jason, which made them envious in their hearts. In the imagination of these elixir masters, the Tai Sui wood that Jason mentioned was probably as rare as the other things they took out. They never thought that such a weird thing would actually be spread out, a rare treasure that knowledgeable people across the continent would desperately grab. Jason took the Tai Sui wood from Hawk's hand, but did not take the bottle of 5th level spiritual potion. He smiled and said, "Master Hui Yao, I am satisfied if I can get this Tai Sui wood. As for this bottle of spiritual potion, please Master Hawk, please accept it." Jason has already taken advantage of this Tai Sui wood by accident. As for these 5th level elixirs, as long as he has the materials, Jason can prepare many, but for Hawk, it was quite precious, and Jason, who was in a good mood, was naturally not prepared to take it back. Ran Jiao, hearing Jason's words, instead of being happy, Hawk's face showed a look of extreme disappointment. The reason why Hawk reluctantly did not want the 5th level elixir and chose to give Tai Sui wood to Jason in vain was so that he could make friends with Jason. However, Jason's attitude seemed to be a matter of business, which made Huiku reluctant to accept the 5th level elixir. Ku couldn't help but feel extremely disappointed and regretful. Since Master Jason is so kind, then Hawk won't be pretentious. Hawk accepted the bottle of 5th level elixir with a sad face, bowed his hand to Jason, and walked towards his seat. Next to him the elixir masters from other countries couldn't help but feel secretly happy. This is the bad nature of people. If you can't get it yourself, you often don't want others to get it. Seeing Hawk's frustrated expression, Jason, who knew why he was like this, laughed loudly. "Master Hawk, if you are free in the future, please welcome me to the Kingdom of Orlando as a guest. I, Jason, will do my best to be a landlord." Hawk's staggering step suddenly stopped, and he slowly turned his head with disbelief in his eyes. After seeing Jason's sincere eyes, Hawk's originally gloomy face was suddenly filled with excited joy. He laughed and said, definitely, since Master Jason warmly invited me, I will definitely visit the Kingdom of Orlando when I have time." Hulk returned to his seat in high spirits, with a heartfelt smile on his face. As several rounds of transactions progressed, Jason soon discovered a few more things that he cared about most. He took out various elixirs from his body and placed them in front of the corresponding items. Jason found that every time he wanted an item, almost no one would compete with him, even those elixir masters from small countries, all expressed their willingness to give Jason the items he liked. Since the other party was so polite, Jason took it without hesitation. Although these items are rare, for the elixir masters present, it's not that shocking. Both parties are willing to do it, but everyone is happy. As every elixir master took out almost all the items he brought this time for trading, the entire trade fair gradually entered into at the end. Finally, the last transaction begins. Just like the auction, although the things traded at the beginning are all treasures, relatively speaking, they are not particularly rare things. As the transaction proceeds, good things, there will be more and more. As for this last transaction, it is the real finale transaction. At this time, the masters of elixirs who have the finale treasures immediately step forward one by one and reluctantly part with the last items placed on the round table. These items are extremely precious to these elixir masters. However, these elixir masters do not need them, or they want to change them to something more suitable for themselves, so they will trade them and try their luck. And this last transaction is different from the previous transactions. It does not limit the ability to speak. If a certain elixir master takes a fancy to a certain item, he can discuss it with the owner of the item and conclude a deal. As the last items came on stage one by one, there was no expression on Jason's face. These items were all good items. Even if they were taken to the level of the entire continent, they were completely treasures. But for Jason, there is no need. Wow. At this moment, Jason's ears suddenly heard a suppressed exclamation coming from the hall. / and the appearance of a certain item caused almost the entire hall, to all the elixir masters' breathing became heavier in an instant. Jason raised his head suddenly and saw Master Silton of the Kingdom of Weiss waiting for a transparent crystal-like polygonal prism-shaped object the size of a fist. It was placed on the round table, and in the middle of the transparent crystal, a fruit with a green body and white patterns on its surface was emitting a slight fluorescence. This is the ice spirit holy fruit? Jason's eyes flashed brightly, and he stood up suddenly. Stern Continent is an extremely vast continent, and to the north of Stern Continent is the boundless North Sea, and the sea in the north of the North Sea among them, there is an Iceland, also known as the Arctic ice field, and the Yuanbing holy fruit is produced in this Iceland. The growing conditions of the ice holy fruit are extremely harsh, it must grow at extremely freezing temperatures, and its maturity period is extremely long, it often takes hundreds of years from flowering to fruiting and then to maturity. If all the items on Geocontinent were divided into levels 1 to 9 like spiritual cores and spiritual crystals, the Taisui would be between the 8th and 9th levels, while the ice-making spirit saint fruit would be an 8th level treasure. Perhaps the ice spirit holy fruit is of very little use to ordinary spiritual masters, but for ice spiritual masters, its importance can be as important as the 6th level high-grade spiritual master potion prepared by Jason for a 5th level senior sect spiritual master. Importance compared. Just like Wayne, who is now an 8th level low-level imperial spiritualist. Although he was an 8th level high-level imperial spiritualist 10 years ago, it will take at least 2 to 3 years to regain his strength without a bottleneck. Only through hard training can he return to his strength 10 years ago, and with the Jibingaling holy fruit, Jason is confident that Wayne can return to his peak 10 years ago within a month. Seeing that his ice spirit holy fruit attracted everyone's attention, Silton smiled slightly and said, "This ice spirit holy fruit is a treasure in the treasury of our Kingdom of Weiss. It has a history of thousands of years. Although it is precious, palladium is of no use to us in the Kingdom of Weiss. I took it out this time to see if there is anything that can make me excited." At this point, Master Silton's sunlight glanced in Jason's direction intentionally or unintentionally, as if he was speaking specifically to Jason. Jason was confused in his heart, but his face was expressionless. Wayne is an 8th level ice type. The matter of the Emperor's spiritual master was already known to everyone in the incident 2 days ago, but at this time, Silton took out the ice spirit holy fruit, which is extremely important to the ice spiritual master, but what does it mean? After Silton placed the ice spirit holy fruit, there were nearly 20 rare treasures on the entire round table. However, in terms of value, the rest of the rare treasures put together may not be as good as that small one. A small ice spirit holy fruit. After the atmosphere in the hall settled for a moment, some people began to move forward, took out the things they wanted to exchange, and placed them on the round table. Almost all the elixir masters in the entire hall, whether they wanted to change something or not, would walk up to the ice spirit holy fruit and take a look. 2 of them even hesitated to take out something and put it next to it, but they hesitated for a long time. After that, I don't know whether it was because I didn't have the confidence to impress Master Silton with my own things or for other reasons, but in the end I didn't take outlay. Jason walked in front of the ice spirit sacred fruit without showing any emotion, took out one of the only 2 bottles of 6th grade high-grade spirit master potion he had left from the space ring, and gently placed it next to the ice spirit sacred fruit. This spirit master potion is already the most impressive thing that Jason has ever taken from him. If Silton still refuses to change it in the end, Jason will be helpless. This spirit master potion was indeed prepared by Jason after seeing the spirit master potion that Jason placed next to the ice spirit sacred fruit. Rudolph, who had been paying attention to Jason's movements, suddenly couldn't help but reveal a look on his face. As early as at the auction held by the Oliver Chamber of Commerce, when Rudolph took the photo of the spirit master potion, he had already guessed that the 6th grade high-grade spirit master potion was probably configured by Jason, but also just a suspicion, not a complete certainty. Now after seeing Jason take out the spiritual medicine potion again, the shocked Rudolph was completely convinced. At the same time, he was deeply shocked by Jason's attainments in spiritual medicine. He looked at Jason's, his eyes also became more respectful. Soon, all the elixir masters who wanted to exchange items returned from placing their items. Many rare items were placed in front of various items on the entire round table. However, the ice spirit saint next to Gua, there was only the bottle of light blue elixir that Jason had put down. After everyone stepped back, more than a dozen elixir masters who had placed trading items stepped forward one after another. They already had an idea in mind, either picking up the items placed by a certain elixir master, or it is to take back your original items, basically without a trace of hesitation or pause. After a while, all the masters present completed the last transaction of the day with joy or regret. As if deliberately, Silton did not step forward together with the elixir masters from other countries. At this moment, only the ice spirit sacred fruit he put down and the light blue one Jason placed next to him were left on the entire round table. Color spirit potion. At this time, Silton slowly stood up and walked slowly towards the round table. If ordinary people were so independent and different, they would have been scolded by the other elixir masters in the hall for their perverse behavior. However, as the number 1 elixir master in the entire Northwest, and as the owner of the ice spirit sacred fruit, Silton, everyone present, but in my heart, I felt that it should be like this. For a moment, everyone's eyes in the entire hall were focused on Silton, watching his every word and action. Silton slowly came to the round table, and gently placed his right hand on Jason's bottle of light blue spiritual potion. His powerful 6th level low-level spiritual consciousness quickly entered the potion bottle, and analyzed the light blue spiritual potion in it. Here comes the potion. A tense atmosphere suddenly filled the air. The breathing of the other elixir masters in the hall seemed to slow down in an instant. Their curious eyes looked unblinkingly at the person who was testing the elixir. Master Silton, quietly waiting for the results. These elixir masters from all over the Northwest countries had never seen the bottle of light blue elixir that Jason placed on the round table before, so they were quite curious about what kind of elixir this elixir was. What kind of elixir was this outstanding elixir? Sun actually dared to use it in exchange for a legendary treasure like the ice spirit holy fruit. Just when everyone thought that Master Silton would get the test results soon, Silton, who was calm, squinting his eyes and feeling carefully, suddenly let out a slight murmur in his mouth, and looked in his eyes. There was a hint of doubt in his eyes, as if he had discovered something incredible, and his brows furrowed involuntarily. What's going on? Is there something weird about the bottle of elixir that Jason placed? The other elixir masters in the hall, except Rudolph, all had doubts in their hearts. This is impossible. Just when all the elixir masters were confused, Silton suddenly exclaimed at the round table, with a hint of shock on his face. However, after realizing that the situation was not right, he instantly changed back to his previous state. His calm demeanor, but the constant flash of light in his eyes revealed the shock in his heart. In previous perceptions, Silton found that with his 6th level low-level spiritual consciousness, he could not identify the elemental components and composition of the bottle of spiritual potion that Jason took out. He could only feel that it contained an extremely violent energy. Power seems to be able to improve the level of a spiritual master, but as for its specific function and what kind of effect it can achieve, he has no clue. This shocked Silton. There was only one possibility for this situation to occur, and that was that the bottle of elixir Jason took out was already beyond his own level as the first elixir master in the Northwest. Silton calmed down, took a deep breath, and then said, "Master Jason, please forgive me for my blindness. What exactly is this elixir of yours?" Everyone in the hall suddenly showed their faces. Shocked, they did not expect that not only had they never seen the elixir that Jason took out before, but Master Silton, who was a 6th level low-level elixir master, did not recognize it after sensing it. Jason smiled slightly and said, "The elixir I took out is a 6th order high-grade spiritual elixir." A 6th order high-grade elixir? Everyone's faces were trying their best to control their expressions, but their hearts were filled with deep sorrow. Deeply shocked. In the entire Northwest, it is currently extremely rare for Master Silton to be able to prepare a 6th grade low-grade elixir. As for a 6th grade high-grade elixir, it is almost impossible to appear. It can be encountered but not sought. Originally, in the minds of these elixir masters, if Jason wanted the ice spirit sacred fruit, he would definitely take out the best elixir he had, but no matter how Jason took it, it would definitely not be as important as the ice spirit's sacred fruit. Because they didn't dare to think that the elixir Jason took out was a high-grade 6th grade elixir, but now, they couldn't help but feel shaken. After all, no matter how rare the ice spirit holy fruit is, it is just a raw material, but what Jason took out was a real 6th level high-grade spiritual potion. As for which one is more valuable between the two, it depends on what effect the elixir Jason took out has, and who needs it more. Feeling the slightly turbulent atmosphere in the hall, Silton said calmly, "Master Jason, maybe I am ignorant. Although I have studied this elixir for decades, I have never heard of this elixir. Spiritual potion, here I would like to ask Master Jason about the efficacy of this spiritual potion." The rest of the elixir masters in the audience also held their breaths and listened carefully with their ears raised. The efficacy of the spirit potion, the corners of Jason's mouth raised slightly, with a sense of confidence on his face, and his eyes calmly passed over the faces of the masters on the field. At this time, Silton and others, they all looked at Jason with big eyes and small eyes, wondering what the effect of this elixir that they had never heard of was. Jason smiled slightly at Master Rudolph in the crowd, and then said, "This spirit master potion can improve the level of any spiritual master below level 7. In other words, if you take this bottle of spirit master potion, the 5th level senior spiritual master will be promoted to the 6th level low-level spiritual master, and the 6th level low-level spiritual master will be promoted to the 6th level intermediate spiritual master. Moreover, after taking the spiritual master potion, there will be no symptoms at all. The side effects will not affect the improvement of your strength in the future." What? The masters who were pretending to be calm and indifferent at this moment all changed their colors and took a breath of cold air. Even Silton had a hint of shock on his face, and asked with a trembling tone, "Master Jason, is what you said true? This Spirit Master potion can really make a low-level Spirit Master promoted to the intermediate level of Spiritual Master?" Silton's tone contained a hint of disbelief, deep expectation, and a hint of suspicion. In fact, after Wayne showed his strength 2 days ago, Silton specially sent another 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master, besides Nowitzki in the delegation, to fly back to the Kingdom of Weiss day and night. After reporting this matter to His Majesty, he specially took it out from the treasury and sent it to Carmela day and night. Silton offended Jason in the matter of Pollock, so he thought of this way. In fact, as long as Jason came up to exchange, no matter what Jason brought out, Silton would agree to the exchange. Although this Ice Spirit Holy Fruit is precious, there are not many strong Ice Spiritual Masters on the road. Using the Ice Spirit Holy Fruit, which the kingdom has not used for thousands of years, can resolve the grudges with Jason and Wayne, and Ken Silton felt it was worthwhile to have a good relationship with a current powerful Emperor Spirit Master and a future Elixir Master. But after Jason revealed the efficacy of the Spirit Master potion, please forgive him for losing his composure. Just like Rudolph was stuck as a 5th-level high-level Elixir Master for many years, Silton was also stuck as a 6th-level low-level Elixir Master for many years. In fact, the same was true for the other Elixir Masters present. As their strength increased, they become stronger and stronger, and every time they advance to a level, it is like reaching the sky for them. The main reason is that their Spiritual Master level cannot be improved. However, according to what Jason said before, this Spirit Master potion can solve this problem for him very well. When he thought that after taking this Spirit Master potion, his Spiritual Master level would break through to the 6th-level intermediate level, Silton's heart was beating wildly, and he was extremely excited. Now that he has become a 6th-level intermediate Spiritual Master, is he still far away from becoming a 6th-level intermediate Spiritual Medicine Master? Feeling the extremely hot but slightly suspicious gazes of everyone in the hall, Jason smiled confidently and said, "Didn't everyone realize that Master Rudolph is already a 6th-level low-level Spiritual Master?" Hearing what Jason said, all the Elixir Masters in the hall instantly turned their attention to Master Rudolph as if they had all agreed. Could it be, when the Elixir Master Conference was held, some masters sitting in the VIP seats had already noticed that Rudolph had been promoted to the 6th level of low-level Spiritual Master, but they all thought that this Rudolph it was a natural promotion. Now that Jason said this, the hearts of these Elixir Masters suddenly became hot. "Master Silton, if you still don't believe it, you can drink this bottle of Spirit Master potion on the spot to verify its efficacy for yourself." Jason looked at Silton calmly, his face full of confidence, and he said lightly, "Personally verify?" Everyone quickly turned their attention to Master Silton, and even their breathing became much more restrained, for fear of disturbing Master Silton's decision. Seeing Jason's confident look, the Elixir Masters who were originally a little skeptical now became more convinced. For a time, countless thoughts quickly passed through the hearts of these Elixir Masters. There was a hint of hesitation on Master Silton's face. The Ice Spirit Holy Fruit had long been decided to be traded to Jason, but the sudden appearance of the Spirit Master potion completely confused him. "Master Silton, what are you still hesitating about?" Yes, since Master Jason said he would let you verify it yourself, he is not afraid, so what are you worried about?" For a moment, all the Elixir Masters in the hall everyone started talking. The peaceful and comfortable atmosphere of the previous trade fair was completely disrupted by the Spirit Master potion that Jason took out. "Well, since all the masters have said so, then I have opened their eyes." Silton's eyes flashed, and he finally calmed down and said. In fact, after hearing what Jason said about the efficacy of the Spirit Master potion, he could not wait to try it now and break through to the 6th-level intermediate Spirit Master realm. Amid everyone's expectant and anxious eyes, Silton gently picked up Jason's bottle of Spirit Master potion, his eyes full of affection, as if he was holding his own heart, and his movements were extremely gentle and cautious. Bo, as the lid of the potion bottle was opened, a strong and extremely strong medicinal fragrance suddenly filled the entire hall. This was a smell that was full of freshness, but also contained strong spiritual power fluctuations. Everyone who smelled this smell, the elixir masters, all felt that their minds suddenly became clearer, and the spiritual consciousness and spiritual power in their bodies also showed a slight increase. All the elixir masters in the hall looked at each other with wide eyes, a hint of horror in their eyes. Just the scent of this elixir can cause such a big change in your body. It seems that this elixir may be able to transform Master Silton from a 6th-level low-level spiritual being to a master, like Jason said. The master was promoted to the 6th-level intermediate spiritual master. Just when the other elixir masters in the hall were surprised and horrified, Master Silton's eyes also lit up, and then he suddenly raised his head. Gudu, an extremely seductive voice, suddenly reached the ears of all the elixir masters in the hall. Except for Jason, almost everyone else in the hall followed Silton's swallowing movements and involuntarily followed him. Swallowed his own saliva. Silton's eyes suddenly lit up. He seemed to feel something. Regardless of his face, he actually stuck out his tongue directly in front of everyone, and then licked the entire potion bottle vigorously. A lap, unwilling to waste even a trace of the medicinal effect. This obscene action immediately made all the elixir masters in the audience dumbfounded. This Master Silton is the #1 elixir master in the Northwest. How could he act like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world before? Naturally, Silton couldn't care about the thoughts of others present. After taking the elixir, he closed his eyes suddenly, sat cross-legged on the ground next to the round table, and frantically circulated the spiritual power in his body. At this moment, the air in the entire hall seemed to be sucked out instantly, and there was no sound. It seemed that everyone had stopped breathing. The minds and eyes of every elixir master were focused on sitting cross-legged. Master Silton didn't want to miss even a single detail. Time passed by minute by second. What puzzled all the elixir masters who were looking forward to it was that there was never even a trace of movement on Master Silton's body. In the originally extremely silent hall, a trace of light suddenly appeared. A faint whiff of noise. Many elixir masters began to show a trace of doubt on their faces, but they still looked at Master Silton motionless. But Jason sat on a chair, calmly, with no trace of anxiety on his face, and was extremely leisurely. When he was assassinated, Jason had taken a bottle of Spirit Master potion. He was a 2nd-level senior spiritual warrior at that time, and his kung fu was upgraded to a low-level 3rd level in an instant. However, Master Silton was a 6th-level spiritual warrior. For low-level spiritual masters, the process of promotion will naturally be a little slower. As time passed, just when some elixir masters were about to lose their patience, Silton, who had been sitting there without any movement, suddenly shook his whole body. An inexplicable and powerful force suddenly rose from Silton's body, and a spiritual power that made everyone breathless filled the entire hall. Exhaled a long breath, and Silton's eyes suddenly opened, and a dazzling light flashed in his eyes. Ha ha, ha ha ha. Before anyone could ask, Silton suddenly stood up, staring blankly at his hands, and then he threw his head up to the sky and laughed, the laughter filled with incomparable joy. The meaning of pleasure. How many years? It's been almost 20 years. I have finally been promoted to an intermediate spiritual master, ha ha, ha ha ha. Silton's bold voice echoed in the hall for a long time, filled with uncontrollable excitement. Changed, everyone's eyes changed at this moment. Swish, 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 countless eyes, like hungry wolves seeing food, all focused on Jason in an instant, and their eyes revealed incomparable fanaticism. Master Jason, do you still have the Spirit Master potion? There is a rare 7th-level spiritual core that has not been taken out. Look, Master Jason, it is in the treasure house of our kingdom. There are also several treasures, why don't you take the time to take a look? Master Jason, I'm here. Some elixir masters no longer care about their status and etiquette at this moment, like people who have been hungry for countless days after seeing the only like a piece of steamed bun, they rushed forward in a swarm, their expressions full of anxiety and expectation. No wonder they are like this. Stern continent is a world where the strong are respected. In the face of naked strength improvement, everyone is inevitable. Full text. Oh. The usual calmness and demeanor of these masters of elixirs are just because they encountered not enough temptations and their hearts were not moved enough. Seeing this scene, Jason was a little dumbfounded, but after thinking about the madness caused by the Spirit Master potion at the Oliver Commercial Association auction, he felt relieved again. After seeing this scene not far away, Silton's eyes flashed with anger. He took a deep breath, stood up and said loudly, "Masters, be quiet, be quiet." Normally, with Silton's reputation, if he shouted like this, the whole hall would definitely fall silent instantly, but this time it had no effect at all. "Everyone, please be quiet," Jason shouted from the crowd. Miraculously, the originally noisy hall suddenly became quiet, which made Master Silton's old face not far away blush with embarrassment. "Master Silton, are you satisfied with the efficacy of this elixir?" Jason turned and walked towards Silton. "Satisfied, really satisfied." Master Silton's face was full of excitement, and then he said solemnly, "Master Jason, this misunderstanding between us is purely caused by Pollock. It is an unforgivable crime to dare to cause harm to your maid, Master." Jason shook his head slightly and said, "Master Silton, since Pollock has been executed, this matter is over and there is no need to mention it again." In fact, Jason still has a grudge in his heart, and he has no good impression of the kingdom of Weiss that raised Pollock. However, since Claire is completely fine in the end and Pollock has been killed, Jason, I don't want to say anything more. Master Silton's face showed a hint of relaxation, as if he had put down a big stone in his heart. Then he took the ice spirit sacred fruit over and said, "According to the deal, this ice spirit sacred fruit is yours, Master Jason." At this moment, Silton couldn't help but feel grateful that in order to build a good relationship with Jason, he sent someone back to the kingdom to get the ice spirit sacred fruit. Although the ice spirit holy fruit is an extremely rare treasure, Silton is more than willing to use such a treasure that he has no use at all to increase his strength and eliminate the grudge between him and Jason. Jason carefully took the ice spirit sacred fruit, and a warm feeling suddenly came from where he took it. Jason naturally understood that the ice spirit holy fruit must be wrapped in 10,000 years of mysterious ice to retain its medicinal effect. Otherwise, it would easily lose its effect as time goes by. The transparent layer surrounding the ice spirit holy fruit, the crystal, is this Wanzai Xian Bing. Putting the ice spirit sacred fruit into the space ring, Jason turned around and looked behind him quietly at the elixir masters, whose eyes were extremely fanatical and full of expectations. "If the masters want a bottle of Spirit Master potion, you can exchange it with something." Jason used the violent spirit fruit to prepare a total of 5 bottles of Spirit Master potion. 1 bottle was given to Barton, and 1 bottle was auctioned to Rudolph. In his hand, 1 bottle was traded to Silton, and another bottle was taken by himself. Now there is only the last bottle left, and he is ready to trade it at this moment. From the Tai Sui wood and the ice spirit sacred fruit, Jason finally understood that although the Northwest kingdoms were small, they had been passed down for countless years. Many kingdoms must have some rare treasures hidden in them. This time, let's look for this opportunity again. Seeing such a crazy scene before, Jason would have even wanted to prepare some in batches if the violent spirit fruit wasn't so rare. Hearing what Jason said, these elixir masters suddenly became extremely excited. At the same time, they also thought deeply about whether there was anything they could exchange for the last bottle of Spirit Master elixir. After all, this is a 6th grade high-grade elixir, and Master Silton used the ice spirit holy fruit in exchange for it. While all the elixir masters were thinking, Jason put the last bottle of 6th level high-grade spiritual master elixir in the space ring. Arriving at the round table. Suddenly, the hearts of all the elixir masters in the audience felt hot, and their breathing seemed to have stopped. Their eyes were fixed on the light blue elixir potion placed quietly on the round table, and their eyes seemed to want to spray. Come out on fire. Master Jason, there are still several treasures in the lower kingdom's treasure house, but I didn't bring them here this time. I wonder if we can write down the items and let the master decide? An elixir master who did not bring the treasures with him, looking at Jason with hope in his eyes. Yes, my kingdom also has 2 treasures, but I didn't bring them here this time. Most of the elixir masters nearby also shouted. For a master trade fair like this, although everyone will bring rare treasures with them. Treasures, but the real treasures and the treasures that are useful to them, these masters of elixirs will basically not trade them, and they will all stay in their own kingdoms. Like the ice spirit sacred fruit of the kingdom of Weiss, if Wayne hadn't shown his astonishing strength, because of the Pollock incident, Master Silton wanted to have a good relationship with Jason and the others, so he specially sent a 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master. After flying all night, I rushed back and forth in 3 days and 3 nights. This time I would not appear at this master trade fair. Feeling the extremely enthusiastic gazes of the elixir masters in front of him, Jason could only nod his head and said, if any master really has a treasure in the kingdom, it would be fine to write it down on paper, but if you let me know which master is doing this, if you write it casually because of the spirit master potion, then a flash of light suddenly flashed across Jason's eyes, and the temperature in the entire hall seemed to drop 2 degrees in an instant, making these elixir masters shiver collectively. Originally, some elixir masters wanted to write down some rare items first, and then find a way to find the treasures they had written after getting the spirit master elixir. However, after hearing Jason's warning, they had no choice but to he restrained his little thoughts. If he really did this, and Master Jason came to the kingdom to get the treasure, but he couldn't get it out, then the matter would be serious. Thinking of Wayne's behavior at the Weiss Kingdom delegation's residence that day, these elixir masters couldn't help but trembled violently. In a short time, several extremely rare items were once again placed on the round table. Then some of the elixir masters who had treasures in the kingdom also got paper and pen, and wrote down all the treasures in their kingdoms. He got up and placed it next to the Lingzuan potion. Those elixir masters from small countries who really had nothing to offer could only look at the elixir masters who came up to the round table with great envy at this time, their expressions filled with sadness. After seeing several treasures on the round table, Sri Lanka and others who had been in shock were speechless. They never thought that after the entire trade fair was over, there were still some masters of elixirs with such rare treasures, and the value of these treasures was higher than all the treasures of the de-icing spirit holy fruit that had been traded before. Superior. For example, Master Dubai, the number 1 elixir of the Kingdom of Sad, took out a 7th-level wood spiritual core. In terms of value, the 7th-level spiritual core, except for the ice spirit sacred fruit and the spirit master potion, is worth more than any other treasure traded is much higher. Obviously, these elixir masters still have something in their hands, but at the previous trade fair, they did not see any items worth trading for such treasures. After a while, there was a pile of treasures on the round table. Under the anxious gazes of all the elixir masters, Jason slowly walked to the round table and examined it carefully. After seeing the efficacy of the spiritual potion, these elixir masters brought out the rarest treasures. However, Jason was disappointed that among all the items, none of them particularly attracted his attention. Like this 7th-level wood spiritual core, as well as the treasures written by several elixir masters, they are not inferior to the 7th-level spiritual core, but for Jason now, they are not of much use. Master Jason, please wait a moment, wait a moment. Just when Jason was hesitating and not knowing what to choose, a person suddenly rushed in at the door of the hall, breathing heavily and his face flushed. This person is none other than Master Roberts, the number 1 elixir of the Eastern Kingdom. However, because everyone had focused their attention on the elixir, no one saw that this host was no longer in the hall. Master Jason, there is another treasure here. I would like to ask Master Jason to take a look. Roberts trotted to Jason, holding a purple jade scroll in his hand and placing it on the round table. There are also blue and purple patterns on it, which are simple and gorgeous, giving people a majestic feeling. Roberts's action immediately made the other elixir masters present feel angry and unhappy. The thing that Roberts took out so excitedly was definitely an extraordinary treasure. As a result, everyone would definitely be more competitive and less hopeful. It's just that this is the territory of the Dongguan kingdom after all, but they can't say much. Master Roberts, what are you doing? Jason frowned, took the jade scroll handed by Roberts, and looked through it carefully. Finally, his eyes rested on the small words on the side of the scroll: Moon level low grade, flying spirit technique, wings of lightning and thunder? Wings of lightning and thunder? As he murmured this unfamiliar sounding word, Jason's eyes slowly opened wide, and he said in shock, "It's actually a flying skill." Flying skill? Master Jason, did you read that right? Really flying skill? How could Roberts give it up? No, flying skill. When did the Eastern Kingdom have such a treasure? Not only Jason, but all the elixir masters in the entire hall had astonishment in their eyes and murmured in their mouths after hearing this name. On the Stern continent, a 5th-level spiritual master can glide in the air for a moment, while a strong person above the 6th-level spiritual master can fly and pause in the air for short distances. However, if you really want to travel in the sky and fly through the air, only a 7th-level Emperor Spirit Master has the fastest possibility. But this flying skill gives spiritual masters below the 7th-level Imperial Spirit Master the possibility of flying. Flying is the dream wish of countless people, and it is a temptation that is enough to make countless spiritual masters' hearts beat. In order to pursue this temptation, many strong people are working hard towards the unattainable realm of the Imperial Spiritual Master. In this case, the flying skill that can take shortcuts is naturally not low in value. On the Stern continent, there are many categories of spiritual skills, such as physical skills, attack spiritual skills, defensive spiritual skills, speed spiritual skills, spiritual knowledge and spiritual skills, etc. There are many types, countless, but flying spiritual skills are definitely one of the most rare and precious. Think about it, as long as you truly master this flying skill, no matter what your own strength is, if you want to run away when you encounter danger, it is impossible for a spiritual master below the 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master to catch you. How outrageous! Jason's heart suddenly beat loudly. Master Jason, this Thunder Wing is the most precious treasure of our Eastern Kingdom. If Master Jason is willing to trade the Spirit Master potion to me, then this Lightning Wing is yours, Master Jason. Now. Roberts looked at Jason with extremely expectant eyes, and his heart was full of anxiety and tension. In the Northwest countries, low-level moon-level spiritual skills are already extremely rare, let alone flying spiritual skills. Any spiritual master below the level of 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master will be full of incomparable temptations. But in exchange for the Spirit Master potion, Roberts specifically asked Kakori, who was previously guarding outside, to rush back to the palace, report to His Majesty Charlie, and take out the Thunder Wings stored in the kingdom's treasury. When he thought that if he got this spiritual potion, he who had been stuck as a 5th-level high-level spiritual medicine master might very well become a 6th-level low-level spiritual medicine master, Roberts's heart was filled with excitement. Although flying skills are also extremely precious, for a kingdom, a 6th-level low-level elixir master is undoubtedly more valuable. Since Master Roberts is so generous, I will not talk nonsense. This Thunder Wings, I accepted it, Jason said without hesitation. Robert's face suddenly showed a look of extreme joy, while the rest of the elixir masters in the hall, who were originally extremely worried, were now filled with despair. But they all had to admit in their hearts that no matter whether the value of this flying skill was the greatest among all treasures, it was undoubtedly the most tempting to anyone below the 7th-level Emperor Spirit Master level. Now that Jason has selected the items, the remaining elixir masters all took back their items with great regret, with deep regret in their eyes. There was such a good promotion opportunity in front of them, but they were unable to seize it. How sad it is. An hour later, the trade fair finally ended, and this time the Elixir Master Conference, with the end of the Master Trade Fair, finally came to a complete end. In this Elixir Master Conference, there were more than 1,000 young Elixir Masters from the Northwest countries participating, and dozens of Elixir Masters. In the next few days, they all dispersed one after another. Some people were happy and some were worried. These Elixir Masters from the Northwest countries were either happy, emotional, shocked, or regretful. They had so many thoughts in their hearts that they left Carmela one after another. But no matter what, all the delegation members from the Northwest countries, as well as the people from all over the world who came to the royal city of Carmela to watch the Elixir Medicine Conference, will never forget a name even when they die. Jason, the heaven-defying monster who emerged from this Elixir Master Conference. Perhaps, the entire Northwest will usher in a new era belonging to it. The eastern border of the Northwest countries. This is a majestic and undulating mountain range, with high mountains and ridges reaching into the sky, and rugged rocks stretching endlessly. This is one of the most chaotic areas in the entire Northwest. The 30,000-mile Hengduan Mountains are also the only way for the Northwest countries to reach the center of the continent. There are many dangers here. Countless ferocious spiritual beasts are entrenched in the mountains and are interested in cannibalism. However, the most dangerous thing here is not these beastly spirit beasts, but the bandits entrenched in various strongholds in this mountain range. These bandits blocked some dangerous places in the mountains, robbed passers-by and caravans, burned, killed, and raped, committing all kinds of crimes, and their behavior was extremely cruel. The Northwest countries have also sent troops to the mountains many times to annihilate them, and then the Hengduan Mountains stretch 30,000 miles and are endless. Often the bandits are wiped out in one place, and they appear in another place, which is even more ferocious. In addition, the bandits he was very familiar with the mountain terrain. When he encountered an army, he hid in the mountains and stayed there for 10.5 months before coming out. Over time, even the Northwest countries were unable to do anything. It was early morning, and misty mist filled the valley, giving people a rotten and damp feeling. On the quiet mountain road, a group of 4 people riding white horses suddenly appeared, driving slowly on the steep mountain road. It seemed that they did not pay attention to the extremely dangerous Hengduan Mountains, which had changed in the entire Northwest. The leader is a middle-aged man with thick eyebrows and sharp eyes. He is wearing a taupe-edged short shirt. His expression is arrogant and powerful. Next to him is a gray-haired old man with wrinkles on his face and cloudy eyes. There was just an occasional flash of light in the depths of his eyes, but it was something that should not be underestimated. Following the 2 men were 2 middle-aged men wearing armor. Their eyes were sharp and powerful, but they seemed to be acting as guards in the team of 4. Third Elder, could it be that my family still can't trust me? For a small family in a kingdom, why do you, Third Elder, need to come here in person? The middle-aged man looked at the old man beside him, with a trace of indifference in his eyes. Augustus, it's not that the family can't trust you. I don't know your temper yet. The family is afraid that you will not only kill Renaud, but also the entire kingdom of Orlando. The old man came out slowly. Voice. Haha, if the kingdom of Orlando is ignorant, I really mean it. Augustus laughed loudly. The reporter snorted coldly, Augustus, if you want to die, don't bring trouble to the family. No one on the mainland dares to violate the rules set by the Twin Towers. Even the Empire has to abide by them. Don't forget it. When he heard this name, Augustus, who was originally arrogant, could not help but tremble slightly. There was an inexplicable look in his eyes, and there seemed to be a hint of fear. He murmured, Twin Towers. The 4 people in this group, it was Augustus and others who came from the Daos family in Shawnee County of the Cairo Empire. After Augustus left the county alone, Sally, the 3rd elder of the Daos family, rushed up with 2 guards, for fear that Augustus went to the kingdom of Orlando to do something lawless this time. Well, Just as a few people were walking slowly on the road, suddenly, Augustus couldn't help but frown slightly, and there was a faint sound of fighting and crying in the distance. "Aunt!" A faint sneer appeared at the corner of Augustus's mouth. He patted his horse and galloped forward. "This Augustus." Sally couldn't help frowning and sighing. Augustus galloped and quickly arrived at the place where the fighting was happening. He saw in the mountain col not far ahead, a group of nearly 100 bandits frantically attacking a caravan of about 50 people. There were a lot of corpses lying scattered throughout the mountain col, about 50 of them. Most of them were wearing the clothes of caravan guards, and only a few were bandits. The remaining 50 or so people stood tightly next to the two carriages, forming a circle. Many of them had blood flowing from their bodies and were in extremely embarrassed condition, with a trace of sadness in their eyes. "Damn it, kids, somehow I thought of killing the Monkey King for me, killing all the men, leaving only young women, haha." A big man with a long scar on his face and a beard standing on a tall rock, with a giant sword on his shoulder, he shouted excitedly and commanded. Under the command of the big man, more than 300 bandits suddenly rushed and attacked the 50 caravans. There are many people, extremely brave. "Who is it?" As soon as Augustus appeared, he was discovered by the group of robbers. In an instant, more than 10 armed robbers surrounded Augustus. In this robber group in the rampant Hengduan Mountains, such a strange, lone middle-aged man appeared. The more than 10 bandits had strong vigilance in their eyes and did not act rashly. "Huh?" The bandit leader standing on the boulder also stared at him. "Who is it?" A faint sneer appeared at the corner of Augustus's mouth, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. "Whoa!" The dozen or so robbers surrounding Augustus only felt a flash of light in front of their eyes. In shock, an extremely huge pain suddenly came from their waists, and the more than 10 robbers lowered their heads and looked. Ah! Heartbreaking roars of pain suddenly rose into the sky from the mountain kernel. It was a roar of incomparable horror and despair. The roars of more than a dozen people actually drowned out the shouts of the 300 bandits who were fighting not far away. In an instant, the fighting in the entire mountain col stopped, and everyone's eyes fell on Augustus in an instant. I saw that the dozen robbers who had surrounded Augustus before were all cut off from the waist at this moment, and their bodies were divided into 2 parts. Their blood and internal organs were flowing all over the ground, and they were screaming on the ground, their voices full of fear and pain. "You won 11?" The bandit leader was stunned immediately. His strength had reached the level of a 5th-level intermediate sect spiritual master, but he hadn't even seen the opponent's movements clearly before. The 300 bandits present did not see the scene where Augustus took action earlier. They saw their brothers being killed and their eyes were filled with anger. "Kill!" More than 50 people rushed out of the 300 bandits in an instant, roaring, waving bloody weapons in their hands, and flew towards Augustus. "Aunt, you are always so arrogant." Augustus raised his lips slightly, a trace of contempt and disdain flashed across his eyes, and then he moved. Facing the more than 50 bandits who were rushing toward him and exuding terrifying murderous intent, Augustus pushed forward with his hands like a millstone. An invisible khaki color suddenly rippled out from between his hands, just like the surface of a lake disturbed by stones. It created ripples and swept towards the more than 50 bandits who were rushing towards him crazily. Buzz! Silently, the more than 50 bandits seemed to have been collectively cut by an invisible giant blade, and they were cut off at the waist in an instant. Ah! The shocking scream suddenly echoed in the mountain col for a long time. The bandits who were still alive and kicking before were now screaming wildly and falling to the ground. The severe pain made them twist and roll, blood flowed across the river, extremely terrifying. "Escape!" The bandit leader let out a horrified roar. He stood up and ran wildly towards the mountains. Among the 300 bandits, the remaining 200 or so bandits also shouted in great fear. With that, the weapons in their hands flew out one after another, and they ran away into the mountains, each of them wishing they had a few more legs. Augustus' body suddenly jumped into the air, his eyes filled with indifference, and then he turned his right hand and pressed down. Boom! The air couldn't help but tremble, causing ripples. A huge palm print with a radius of tens of meters suddenly appeared on the hard rock ground. Dozens of robbers were photographed under this palm. A pile of minced meat. Boom, boom, boom. As Augustus kept turning his hands, none of the more than 200 robbers escaped, and they all turned into puddles of meat, leaving only those who were about to enter the depths of the mountain forest. Bandit leader. One more thing, we are about to enter the mountains and forests. The middle-aged man roared in his heart, with a look of fear on his face. Suddenly, a wave of spiritual energy suddenly hit him from behind. Roar! The bearded bandit leader roared, and the 5th-level intermediate spiritual power in his body instantly surged out. He held the giant sword in both hands and slashed backwards. A fiery red spiritual power light instantly erupted from his body and the giant sword came out violently. Boom! A huge force suddenly came from afar, and the bandit leader's round eyes revealed a trace of incredible despair. The stainless steel giant sword infused with 5th-level intermediate spiritual power shattered in an instant. The next moment, under this huge force, his entire body was shattered into pieces and turned into pieces of meat all over the floor. Humble ants don't deserve to live in this world at all. Augustus murmured in his mouth, slowly fell to the ground, turned on his horse, and glanced at the dozens of remaining caravan members not far away. After feeling Augustus' indifferent gaze, the dozens of caravan members couldn't help but trembled, and many of them sat down on the ground in shock, their bodies trembling. Under siege by hundreds of bandits before, they were still able to resist despite knowing that they would die. At this moment, their expressions were extremely frightened, and there was no trace of courage in their eyes. The mountain call was not far away, and Sally and others slowly arrived at this time. Seeing the messy mountain call, Sally couldn't help but frown slightly, but he didn't say anything. After meeting Augustus, the group of 4 slowly drove forward again. Devil! Devil! Looking at the retreating figures of the 4 Augustus men, the dozens of rescued caravan members had twisted expressions and murmured in horror. A few days later, a group of 4 people left the Hangduan Mountains and appeared at the easternmost border of the northwest countries. Looking at the endless grassland in front of him, Augustus murmured, "We are finally here. The northwest countries and the kingdom of Orlando are probably not far away. Reno, this time, your death has come." It is now the day after the end of the Master Trade Fair in Carmela, the royal city of Dongxing Kingdom. Most of the teams of elixir masters from other countries have paid a brief visit to Roberts and others, the #1 elixir master of Dongxing Kingdom, and left Carmela one by one, ready to go. However, Jason's delegation from the Kingdom of Orlando did not make any movement and seemed to be in no hurry to leave. With their status, as long as they don't propose to leave for a day, no one can urge them. In the sky, a group of birds flew overhead, and the red body was like the sun in the sky, bringing the smell of sunshine. At this moment, in Jason's room at the Orlando Kingdom delegation's residence, Wayne was standing quietly aside, but Jason had his eyes closed, constantly running his body's 3rd-level intermediate spiritual power, washing his meridians over and over again, and changing his physical condition and spiritual activity, improving towards the best state. I don't know how long it took, but Jason's eyes suddenly opened, and he exhaled slightly, his face full of energy and high spirits. After a long period of adjustment, his various physical conditions have now been adjusted to optimal levels. "Jason, are you ready?" Wayne on the side said. Jason nodded without saying a word. Turning his hands, the amber E-sealed spiritual heart he bought from the stall the day before yesterday appeared in his right hand. As soon as the sealed spiritual heart came out of the space ring, an inexplicable and terrifying aura spread in the air, and deep in Jason's mind, there was suddenly a strong desire to absorb the sealed spiritual heart. Impulse. Jason, Is this really a spiritual heart in your hand? Why do I feel so unreliable? Wayne couldn't help but said. Even as an 8th-level senior Imperial spiritual master, he had never heard of this. There is still such a thing as sealing spiritual hearts on the mainland. It's not that he doesn't believe in Jason, it's just that he feels a little unreasonable in his heart. It's true that this is a sealed spiritual heart. Please protect me. Jason's tone was also solemn. He didn't know what level this spiritual heart was, but now he happened to lack a 3rd-level spiritual heart. After feeling the desire to absorb this spiritual heart from various bodies in his mind, he finally decided to take a risk. In the past, Jason didn't need help from others when absorbing spiritual hearts, but this time, he solemnly invited Wayne to protect him, but even so, he still couldn't decide whether taking it would do any good. An auxiliary elixir that reduces the effectiveness of the spiritual heart. A trace of spiritual power slowly entered from Jason's hand into the holy topaz crystal that sealed the spiritual heart. As Jason's spiritual power entered, the holy topaz crystal, which was originally a solid spherical shape, turned out to be like heated wax, gradually melted, and the spiritual heart was gradually exposed. Just when the fiery red blood-like spiritual heart was exposed to the air, an inexplicable powerful force was suddenly released from the spiritual heart, and then the temperature in the entire room suddenly increased. It increased by countless degrees and became extremely hot. Even the air seemed to be burning under this heat wave. Feeling this powerful power, Wayne's face couldn't help but change slightly. The powerful power released from the spiritual heart in Jason's hand actually made him, an 8th-level low-level Emperor spiritual master, feel a little palpitated. What a terrifying power, Jason, think about it again. Wayne's face changed slightly, and he persuaded him again. There was also a hint of solemnity on Jason's face. When he was sealed by the holy topaz crystal, he couldn't figure out what level this spiritual space was. But now, Jason clearly feels that the power contained in the spiritual heart is definitely not what he can bear now. Not to mention anything else, just the scorching temperature radiating from the surface of the spiritual heart makes his current body extremely strong. Compared to a 7th-level Imperial spiritual master, he felt an unbearable burning sensation. Just when Jason was hesitating to seal the spiritual heart again, after the spiritual heart completely came out of the holy topaz crystal, a red light flashed and suddenly shot into Jason's eyebrows. Not good. Jason was suddenly shocked. He never thought that this spiritual heart would directly enter the center of his eyebrows without the guidance of spiritual consciousness. Before he could prepare, an extremely intense high temperature suddenly spread from his mind to his whole body. In the severe pain, Jason hurriedly closed his eyes, controlled the spiritual power in his body, and tried his best to suppress. Above the spiritual seat in Jason's mind, the shadow of a gorgeous giant bird with its body burning with flames quietly appeared, exuding an extremely powerful force that actually made Jason's soul power comparable to that of a 9th-level peak Holy Spirit Master, and couldn't help but tremble. I am the Holy Beast Immortal Fire Phoenix. You want to absorb my spiritual heart. I will let your soul and body be destroyed by my holy flames. A majestic voice sounded above Jason's spiritual sea. There was a rumble, and then the phantom of the giant flame bird exploded in an instant, turning into countless flames and burning. Suddenly, the sky above Jason's spiritual sea turned into a sea of fire, and Jason's body's spiritual power, meridians, flesh and blood, bones, and internal organs all burned instantly. Boom! Suddenly, an unexplained and scorching high temperature instantly emitted from Jason's body. Wayne, who was standing quietly next to Jason, had no idea what was going on, but he suddenly noticed that Jason's body became extremely hot and red, and traces of flames quietly emerged from his body. The wooden furniture in the room also emitted wisps of green smoke under this high temperature, as if it was about to burn. Jason's body shook violently at the same time, and a trace of blood quietly left from the corner of his mouth, which was then dried instantly. Jason, damn it. Jason's situation made Wayne feel a little worried, his eyes flashed, and the ice spiritual power in Wayne's body burst out instantly, entangled with the high temperature on Jason's body. This impossible. What surprised Wayne was that after his 8th level low-level ice spiritual power was released, the temperature in the entire room only dropped a little. After fighting with the mysterious power, it didn't take much advantage. You know, his spiritual power is a real 8th level spiritual power. At this moment, a painful groan suddenly came from Jason's mouth, and his whole body twitched involuntarily. The clothes on his body burned to ashes in an instant, and the skin on his body continued to dry out and crack. Layers of fine blood beads continued to overflow from Jason's body, and then evaporated in an instant, leaving only puddles of dry and dim blood. Fine cracks spread quickly on Jason's body, looking extremely terrifying. "Seal the world of ice and snow!" Wayne roared, and countless ice spiritual powers swarmed out of his body and wrapped around Jason's body. What's going on? At this moment, in a room not far from Jason's room, Claire was packing Jason's things. Suddenly, Claire felt an inexplicable force coming from Jason. The message came from the direction of the young master's room. This power attracted Claire, and the red spot on her face was also slightly emitting a glowing red light at this moment. In a daze, Claire walked out of the door and walked towards Jason's room. As the distance got closer, Claire felt that this force was attracting her more and more. "Claire, why are you here? Get out quickly, it's dangerous here." Claire appeared at the door, and Wayne, who was trying his best to suppress the flame power in Jason's body, couldn't help but roar. "Master Jason!" Seeing Jason's painful look, Claire's heart suddenly trembled. She didn't listen to Wayne's words at all, but rushed in suddenly. "Claire, you!" Wayne was angry in his heart, and a burst of spiritual power was instantly separated by him, wrapping up towards Claire, trying to send Claire out of the room. However, something he didn't expect happened. Just when his 8th level low-level spiritual power was about to reach Claire, the red spots on Claire's face suddenly flashed, and the 8th level spiritual power he released, the power disappeared instantly. Then, the red spots on Claire's face slowly faded away, and her originally silver eyes turned into gold the next moment. What surprised Wayne was yet to come. A ball of blazing flames suddenly emerged from Claire's body, and suddenly trembled, with a tendency to weaken. "Chong!" A majestic voice suddenly came out from Jason's body, with a hint of majesty and anger in it. With the appearance of this voice, the weakened fire power in Jason's body once again exploded. "Increase." "Ouch!" A more majestic voice faintly came from Claire's body. This voice carried an aura of looking down on the world and contained the laws of the Great Road, which made Wayne couldn't help but be shocked. Two invisible forces immediately started fighting, turning the entire room into a battlefield. In the battle between these two forces, Wayne was very depressed to find that as an 8th level Imperial spiritual master, he could only be forced to a corner of the room. All the spiritual energy in Jason's body was burning and being consumed like fuel. His meridians were severely damaged, and his internal organs, flesh and blood, were burned away bit by bit. His entire body had reached a precarious state. Even the spiritual power above the spiritual sea seems to be burning. At this point, Jason no longer felt any pain at all. Just when Jason was holding on to the last empty space in his mind, and his consciousness was about to dissipate, suddenly, a strange force suddenly emerged from Jason's body. It was exactly what Jason had experienced every time he encountered a crisis. Every time, the mysterious power reappears. As soon as this power appeared, it slowly flowed along Jason's meridians. The extremely powerful and terrifying flames of the fire phoenix, which had been burning continuously in Jason's body, encountered this strange power, and it was like meeting the sponge. The water was absorbed instantly. The rest of the fire phoenix flames immediately retreated in horror like mice after seeing a cat, and gathered towards the sky above Jason's spiritual sea. I am very grateful to the like Jiangnand brothers for another reward of 100,000 starting coins. Woohoo-hoo, It is comparable to double alliance leaders. The junior master will work harder to write a good book so that brothers and sisters can get exciting content. Thank you brothers and sisters for your monthly votes today, which allowed me to temporarily save Juhua. However, the enemy is very cruel and has opened a single chapter to ask for monthly votes. Shasher's single chapter will not be opened. I would like to appeal here to brothers and sisters who have monthly votes. Please continue to support us and don't let the other party ravage our little master. The mysterious power was running slowly through Jason's damaged meridians that were almost reduced to ashes. All the remaining flame power was absorbed by the mysterious power one by one. The flames of the fire phoenix that finally converged and the mysterious power finally converged on Jason's spiritual sea and faced each other. All the fire phoenix flames gathered together again and transformed into a huge flame bird, standing proudly above the spiritual sea. The powerful power faintly exuded made Jason's spiritual sea tremble slightly. But that mysterious power turned into a hazy black mist and flew towards the immortal fire phoenix. Boom! The two forces collided instantly, and the huge energy impact caused Jason's spiritual sea to surge like a tsunami. I am the immortal fire phoenix, possessing the power of immortality. The rumbling sound echoed in Jason's mind, but Jason discovered that entangled by the mysterious power in his body, the giant flame bird was tightly held by the pervasive hacker. Wrapped up, he kept struggling, but became increasingly weak. Bang! Knowing that he was outmatched, the giant flame bird exploded suddenly, and huge energy flew away. Part of the flame was quickly absorbed by the mysterious power and turned into nourishment for the mysterious power to grow. However, there was still a part of the flames of the fire phoenix, which broke away from the mysterious power under the explosion of the leaking cauldron Huanzhou, and recondensed into a smaller flame giant bird, rushing towards the outside of Jason's spiritual sea. Wanting to get out of Jason's body. Buzz! At this moment, an invisible force suddenly passed from outside Jason's body, blocking the giant flame bird in Jason's spiritual sea. Claire's golden eyes were indifferent without any emotion, the temple was burning with red flames, and her right hand was placed on Jason's forehead. It was the powerful fire power escaping from Claire's body that condensed into a huge will, intercepting the flame body of the immortal fire phoenix in Jason's body. Amidst the high-pitched phoenix cry, the mysterious power once again turned into a huge net, tightly covering the flame body of the immortal fire phoenix. Amidst the fierce roar, the immortal fire phoenix's struggle became weaker and weaker. Finally, the huge energy transformed from the immortal fire phoenix's spiritual heart was completely consumed in Jason's body. In the room, Jason was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Not a trace of life breath came out of his body. The clothes outside had long been burned in the previous flames. On his naked body, almost no part of his body was safe. It was covered with dry, there was not a trace of blood in the crack. At this moment, suddenly, a flame burst out from Jason's body again. However, what is different from before is that this time, the red flames coming out of Jason's body are exuding a rich breath of life, constantly nourishing Jason's body. This is Wayne, who finally took a breath due to the disappearance of the power of the immortal fire phoenix, was surprised to find that Jason's originally dry and cracked skin was now squirming and growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Granulation sprouts continued to grow from Jason's flesh and blood. In a matter of moments, Jason's body, which was originally covered with horrific wounds, became intact as before. At the same time, under the warmth of that mysterious power, Jason's originally damaged body was quickly repaired as if it had been exposed to the rain. The meridians, flesh, blood, internal organs, etc. that were burned in Jason's body and were about to turn to ashes are also growing and reorganizing. It's like being reborn. Jason's body is reborn in the blazing flames. In the flames, Jason Nirvana. Rebirth. A golden spiritual ring with a red edge slowly rose from Jason's head, and finally floated behind Jason's head. A phantom of a giant flame bird filled with boundless momentum also appeared faintly in the sky above Jason's spirit ring, full of domineering power. Jason finally absorbed the spirit ring and succeeded. This as Wayne stared blankly at the shadow of the immortal fire phoenix appearing above Jason's head, and couldn't help but take a breath of air. With his eyesight, he could naturally see this giant flame bird that exudes a huge momentum is definitely not just a third-level spiritual beast. This is how Wayne felt when his spiritual heart was liberated from the seal of the holy topaz crystal, but he didn't expect that he would actually be absorbed into a spiritual ring by Jason in the end. What is this? Don't the absorbing spirit rings have to be of the same level? Wayne's heart was full of doubts. When Wayne was full of doubts, Jason, who closed his eyes and felt the condition in his body, was extremely shocked. At this moment, Jason's body is like a fire phoenix after rebirth from nirvana, and his spiritual power level has faint signs of breaking through to the third level. More importantly, although Jason's spiritual power level has not increased, the strength of his meridians, internal organs, muscles, fascia, bones, etc. are more than half stronger than before absorbing the immortal fire phoenix spiritual heart. The muscles are extremely transparent, the bones are crystal white, and there is a feeling of indestructibility, reaching some extremely terrifying state. And because Jason's body was now running with powerful spiritual power with a hint of fire attribute. What made Jason even more delighted was that extremely powerful mysterious power had never been able to be used in the past. After appearing, it would quickly disappear again, but this time, it was running quietly in Jason's meridians. Wherever it went, Jason's third-level advanced spiritual power retreated one after another, as if welcome the visiting king. With this mysterious power and the power brought by the immortal fire phoenix spirit ring, Jason clearly felt that his internal organs, muscles, and bones were full of endless vitality, and even if they were broken and damaged, they would be repaired in a very short time. Finally, Jason let out a long breath, and slowly opened his eyes that had been closed. In his eyes, there was a faint cause a flame seemed to be burning there. "Master, you are finally fine." A crisp and joyful voice suddenly came from the front, and Claire was standing in front of Jason, looking at him with joy. At this moment, Claire's eyes had already returned to their previous silver color, and the red spots on her face were still there, no different from usual, and her eyes couldn't help but look at Jason. Suddenly, Claire's face turned red as if she had seen something, a trace of shyness flashed across her eyes, and she turned her head hurriedly. In confusion, Jason, who felt a chill all over his body, couldn't help but look down and saw that he was sitting naked in a messy room. Except for the gravity pendant and the space ring on his left hand, he had nothing on his body. Not a trace of covering. Jason's eyes suddenly widened, and he jumped up suddenly. A light flashed from the space ring on his left hand, and a brand new set of clothes appeared in Jason's hands. I put it on quickly in embarrassment. "Go up." Ahem. Jason, who felt something was wrong in the atmosphere, couldn't help coughing twice. Not knowing what to say at this time, he blurted out, "Well, Claire, you didn't see anything." Barclay's face turned even redder, and even her ears and neck were crimson. Now Jason himself was speaking in a primitive way. Outside the room, Digio, Rudolph and others, who were extremely worried after hearing the noise here, blocked Wayne, who was outside the room. At this time, he also moved out of the way. "Master Jason, are you okay?" Lin, Rudolph and others rushed in. After seeing the messy room, they expressed worry. Today's Jason is the hope for the rise of the Kingdom of Orlando. If something happens, it is not something the two of them can bear. "Haha, I made you worry, I'm fine." Looking at the worried eyes of countless people in the entire delegation inside and outside the room, Jason couldn't help but feel a little moved in his heart. Seeing that Jason Fong was really fine, Rudolph and others felt a huge weight drop from their hearts. I just don't know why, when Rudolph and Lin looked at Jason, they seemed to find that the Jason now seemed different from the Jason yesterday. But what was the difference? The two of them were different. Not sure. "As long as it's okay, that's okay," Rudolph nodded and said, "In that case, let's leave first." Although Rudolph was very curious about what happened here before, since Jason didn't take the initiative to talk about it, Rudolph wasn't stupid enough to ask. "Congratulations, you finally succeeded." After Rudolph and others left, Wayne walked in again, and then said with confusion on his face, "What kind of spiritual beast did the spiritual heart you absorbed earlier be?" "Holy beast, immortal fire phoenix," Jason said slowly. "What?" Wayne was shocked, and then looked at Jason as if he had seen a ghost and said, "Holy beast, immortal fire phoenix, are you sure you are right?" Jason smiled and said, "Is it me? I don't know, it was saying in my mind that it was the sacred beast, the immortal fire phoenix, or maybe it was lying to me." Jason made a rare joke, and Wayne was completely speechless, looking at Jason with eyes like he was looking at a giant dragon, and said, "What a monster." The 9th level spiritual master is a spiritual master, and what can be called a holy beast is definitely a 9th level spiritual beast, and it is also the pinnacle of 9th level spiritual beasts. But Jason is only at the 3rd level. He actually absorbed it before. What's even more exaggerated is that the spiritual heart of a 9th level spiritual beast was successfully absorbed by him. This is not a monster or something. But it is also true that the fire power released from the spiritual heart can completely suppress himself. It seems that only the spiritual heart of a 9th level spiritual beast has this possibility. That's not right. Suddenly, Wayne seemed to have thought of something. He turned his eyes to Claire and gritted his teeth and said, "It's not a monster, you are too." He was killed in the battle for the 3 previous forces. Suppressed in a corner and feeling angry, a continuous plain stretches out under the sky. There are no hills, only a dense jungle. Viewed from the air, it is as calm as a lake on a calm day. There is no half a wave. Here, we are far away from Carmela, the royal capital of the Eastern Kingdom. After passing through several small kingdoms, we are not far from the southern border of the Kingdom of Orlando. On the road in the forest, a team of nearly 10 carriages was slowly advancing. Among these 10 carriages, 2 carriages looked particularly luxurious. Although the remaining carriages were not as good as those 2 luxury carriages, they were considered extremely expensive in the entire Northwest. Especially, the horses in front of the carriage are all fat and healthy, and they are more majestic than ordinary horses in the royal family. They are obviously good horses. This convoy was naturally composed of Rudolph and others who had attended the Elixir Master Conference from the Eastern Kingdom. After Jason absorbed the spiritual heart, Rudolph said goodbye to the Eastern Kingdom early the next morning. However, what Rudolph did not expect was that when they left, not only Master Roberts of the Eastern Kingdom personally when they came out to see them off, King Charlie of the Eastern Kingdom took the lead and sent them to the north gate of the royal city of Carmela. In addition, the common people in the entire royal city who received the news also came to the gate of the north city to bid farewell to Jason, the champion of the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference. During the rest of their journey, every time Rudolph and the others passed through a country, they received warm hospitality from the other party, and each time they were personally accompanied by His Majesty the King of that country. Rudolph realized that he had underestimated Jason's influence. After obtaining Jason's consent, he tried his best to avoid the kingdom's territory during the next trip, and the team became much cleaner. The 2 luxury carriages in the entire team were the same as when they went to the competition. One was Master Rudolph, and the other was naturally Jason. However, unlike when he came out of the Kingdom of Orlando, when Jason was sitting in the luxury carriage, the nearly 10 elixir contestants who followed Master Rudolph to the East Kingdom to participate in the elixir competition were quite dissatisfied, but on the way back, they were extremely proud and happy. In the luxury carriage, Jason was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, practicing hard. His breathing was extremely gentle, forming a perfect cycle between exhalations and inhalations. Between each cycle, Jason's body would glow slightly with a red light, and a trace of spiritual elements in the air would be absorbed. It entered Jason's body and integrated into the 3rd level intermediate spiritual power in Jason's meridians. During the quiet practice, Jason's spiritual consciousness was constantly looking at various parts of his body. In the rich third-level intermediate spiritual power in his meridians, the black mysterious power never disappeared, slowly running in the meridians. Although Jason's spiritual consciousness had extremely difficult control over this mysterious power and was basically unable to control it, Jason still felt extremely happy knowing that this power was powerful. When he was assassinated in the alley of the royal city, the opponent's fifth-level sect spirit master instantly expanded and exploded under the bombardment of his own mysterious power. If he could control this mysterious power in his body, looking at the growing third-level intermediate spiritual power in his body, Jason smiled slightly, and his mind slowly left the body. After all the spiritual power in his body calmed down, he opened his eyes. Stretching lazily, Jason took a deep breath. He felt extremely refreshed and full of strength. He could detect that because of the power of the immortal fire phoenix spiritual heart and his recent continuous suffering, the intermediate spiritual power within his body that has just been promoted not long ago has reached its peak again. Perhaps in another month or two, he should be able to enter the third-level advanced level. After adjusting his mental energy to the best state, Jason flipped his palm, and a jade scroll instantly appeared on his palm. It was the scroll of low-grade moon-level flying skills. Soaring in the sky is everyone's dream. Jason is also looking forward to the freedom of flight. Although he was a 9th-level elixir saint master in his previous life, he has no spiritual knowledge and spiritual power. Even if he has the ability, he can achieve it. It was impossible to practice flying skills, but now, he was finally able to fulfill his dream. Holding the purple jade scroll in both hands, Jason's eyes flashed with fire. After adjusting his condition, his spiritual consciousness instantly entered the purple jade scroll. This kind of spiritual skill scroll, made of jade, is made by the scroll maker using a special method. It can only be opened with spiritual consciousness and can only be practiced by one person. After Jason's spiritual consciousness entered the scroll, countless information suddenly rushed into Jason's mind like a flood. At the same time, the simple and atmospheric blue-purple texture on the purple jade scroll instantly turned into streaks of blue-purple thunder and lightning along Jason's arm and entered Jason's body. The jade scroll, which was originally purple with blue-purple patterns engraved on the surface, turned into lightning and entered Jason's body. The color of the scroll suddenly dimmed, turning into empty white, and then turned into countless powders, drifting away from Jason's fingers. The blue-purple thunder and lightning kept moving around Jason's body surface, and severe pain was felt instantly. A large number of beads of sweat the size of soybeans appeared on Jason's forehead, and the pain was so painful that he almost screamed. "Come." The pain came and went quickly. In just 2 or 3 minutes, the countless blue-purple thunderbolts swam around the surface of Jason's body and disappeared into Jason's body. "Is this considered completed?" Jason murmured, and then he kept his mind and started running along the meridians according to the method of spiritual power passed into his mind from the previous scroll. Chi-chi, as the spiritual power circulated, streaks of blue-purple lightning suddenly appeared on Jason's back, condensing into a small wing composed of thunder and lightning, and Jason also felt a tiny buoyancy slowly emerged from under his feet. In excitement, Jason opened the curtain of the car and rushed out. At the same time, the spiritual power in his body began to circulate rapidly. Suddenly, the lightning wings that were only about a foot long behind him suddenly swelled up, creating a huge buoyancy force that caused Jason to fly towards the sky. "Haha," Jason said with a burst of excited laughter. He had already flown above the motorcade and was gliding towards the front of the motorcade. Immediately, all the guards and elixir masters in the convoy who noticed the movement raised their heads, with a look of envy in their eyes after seeing Jason gliding in the sky. There is indeed a reason for the saying that extreme joy leads to sorrow. In the excitement of Jason, the spiritual power in his body relaxed and did not follow the meridian route required by the lightning wings. The blue-purple thunder and lightning behind him shrank and disappeared in an instant, and the whole person fell heavily downwards. "Go." Fortunately, Jason didn't fly very high before. After controlling his body, he tried his best to stand firmly on the ground and almost fell over. Jason felt the spiritual energy in his face carefully, and couldn't help but be shocked. The short flight and gliding previously consumed a lot of spiritual energy in his body. If Jason were not different from ordinary spiritual masters, if there is spiritual power stored in the 1st to 9th level meridians, as well as the 1st and 2nd level meridians in the body, I am afraid that in a few moments, I will have to make an emergency landing due to exhaustion of spiritual power. After careful analysis, Jason found out that the thunder wings can only be used in times of crisis, and cannot be used to rush. Otherwise, the consumption of spiritual power would be too terrible, and I am afraid that I will have to wait until he is promoted. Only after becoming a 5th level sect spiritual master can one truly fly in the air and scrupulously. Under the envious gazes of all the guards and elixir masters, the spiritual power in Jason's body started to work again, and a pair of blue-purple thunder wings flashed in the air again, making crackling sounds. Jason's body suddenly rose into the sky, quickly swept forward, walking through the dense mountain forest, and quickly turned into a black dot, disappearing from the sight of Rudolph and others. This Master Jason, a guard in the team, stretched out his hand and wanted to speak, but when the words came to his mouth, he stopped abruptly. He suddenly remembered what his identity was, and what his own identity was. Even Master Rudolph and Master D. Lin didn't say anything. How could he be qualified to greet them? What's more, Master Jason had an 8th level Emperor spirit beside him. Master Wayne. While thinking, the guard turned his head. Wayne, who had been quietly following Master Jason's luxury carriage, had disappeared without realizing it. Now the guard finally understood why Master Rudolph and Master Dylan were no longer hindered or worried after Master Jason went ahead alone. Over the mountain forest, Jason soared in the sky, feeling the breath of the wind. The spiritual power in his body was constantly running based on the information received in his brain, changing his flying posture in the air. If any spiritual skill is to be used to perfection, it must require a lot of practice and practice. Now that he has nothing to do while on the road, Jason naturally started to practice, and the large amount of spiritual power in his body is consumed, and the cultivation and improvement of spiritual power are also important. A very helpful thing. After feeling the remaining spiritual power in his body, Jason turned around and headed towards the convoy when he realized that the spiritual power was almost half consumed. At this moment, a sound of chasing and shouting suddenly came from far in the forest. Jason was stunned and looked intently in the air. He saw several adventurers holding sharp blades chasing a young man about the same age as himself. When Jason saw the appearance of the young man, he was originally just curious. His expression couldn't help but froze for a moment, and then a look of anger quickly emerged from his face. The boy who was being hunted was Jason's roommate when he was at the Sith Spiritual Power Academy. Carrot in a dense mountain forest, Carrot was walking rapidly. He bit his lips and breathed rapidly. A large amount of sweat rolled down his forehead, and his expression was distorted. The 2nd level low-level spiritual power in his body nourished by the medicine continuously stimulated every meridian in his body, causing his feet to erupt with far greater strength than usual. However, the rapid footsteps coming from behind told him that the enemy still following him closely. Feeling the sound of the strong wind blowing by his ears, Carrot's right hand holding the long sword tightened tighter and tighter. Due to excessive exertion, there was a faint whiteness between the finger bones. Carrot gritted his teeth, and his spiritual power was running desperately, trying to distance himself from the people chasing behind him. However, as the effect of the wind potion in his body gradually disappeared, Carrot's figure finally, after a pause, his speed immediately dropped sharply because the effect of the blast potion disappeared. Whoosh, 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 several lightning-like figures quickly passed by Carrot at this moment, and then 4 adventurers stood in 4 directions, holding Carrot tightly. Surrounded by it. Run, brat, if you dare, run again. The leading adventurer held a giant sword in his hand and looked at Carrot, whose chest was heaving violently with a sinister look on his face. With a ferocious smile on his face, Commander Raditz actually gave you the blast potion. If I hadn't been alert, I would have almost escaped with you, little bastard. What a waste. Bateau, you traitor, I didn't expect you to be such a person and betray my father. Carrot gritted his teeth, his face covered with sweat, and his eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at the big man in front of him. He hates why he has no strength, hates why he didn't escape, hates why he is so weak. He is not afraid of death, but he is afraid that if he dies, no one will be able to avenge his father, and avenge everyone in the entire adventure group. He gritted his teeth, his face twisted together with hatred, and a trace of tears flashed in his eyes. Humph, Carrot, those who know the current affairs are heroes. Your father is stubborn and refuses to accept Lord Blue's solicitation. He deserves this end. Bader snorted coldly, staring at Carrot. That look was like a cat teasing a mouse. Brother Batua, why don't you talk nonsense with him and just become this kid? The other three adventurers were gearing up and couldn't help but say, with a hint of ferocity on their faces. Carrot, don't blame your Uncle Bateau. Don't worry. As long as you don't resist, your Uncle Bateau will be very direct and won't feel any pain. Bateau had a stern smile on his face and the giant gun in his hand. The sword suddenly struck down, causing a violent howling sound of wind. Huh. Carrot's body moved suddenly and he dodged to the side. However, as if the giant sword in Bateau's hand had eyes, he made a deft turn and aimed at Carrot's waist. The clear sound of dang came, and the long sword in Carrot's hand was violently swung away. There was a huge earthquake, the tiger's mouth cracked open, and blood flowed freely. The giant sword in Nabato's hand was as powerful as the sword in Carrot's hand, but it paused for a moment under the obstruction of the long sword in Carrot's hand. It still continued unabated and hit Carrot's chest heavily. After suffering a heavy blow, Carrot's face suddenly turned pale, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. His body violently scraped the ground, and after traveling for more than 10 meters, he crashed heavily into a big tree in the forest. Carrot, with this little strength, you don't have to resist. Everyone here is far stronger than you. Do you think you still have hope of escaping? Stop dreaming and just die. This will make you less likely to escape. Pain, if you want to blame it, blame your father, this damn guy, for refusing to accept Lord Blue's solicitation. The middle-aged man snorted coldly, stepped on the ground with his sawls, and charged violently like a one-horned rhinoceros. Thinking of Carrot, who had lost his fighting power, he swung the giant sword high in his hand, and his unparalleled strength quickly gathered again. Haha, let me send you on your way, kid. Looking at Carrot, who was so close at hand, a trace of cruelty appeared on the face of the middle-aged man, and he swung the giant sword in his hand hard. Looking at the huge sword that was slashing down with boundless energy, Carrot wanted to fight back, but the severe pain in his chest made him unable to move at all, and he could only stare at the sword that was getting closer and closer. The giant sword in his eyes showed a trace of unwilling despair, waiting for death to come. Song. Just when the giant sword was less than 1 meter away from Carrot, a black shadow appeared in front of Carrot like lightning. The fists wrapped in powerful spiritual power were like comets chasing the moon, and they struck heavily. On top of the giant sword, a crisp sound suddenly resounded in the mountain forest. The soles of his feet scraped the ground, and the huge strength caused the middle-aged man to quickly take a few steps back. He looked at the sudden black shadow with a gloomy face, and shouted coldly, "Who?" The other three adventurers not far away where the person was also stunned for a moment, and then rushed over. The four of them used their horns to surround the suddenly appearing black figure. The black shadow slowly raised his head, and the flashing blue-purple thunder light converged behind his back. A handsome face suddenly appeared in front of everyone, making several adventurers a little shocked. This black shadow was actually someone who had never seen him before. The boy I met. Friend, no matter who you are, this is a matter between us adventurers in Waysher City. I think you'd better not meddle in other people's business. Ba-Tua looked at the indifferent young man in front of him, with a sullen face, and shouted coldly at the young man. Make a sound. Although the opponent does not look very old, at most about the same age as Carrot, the speed of the opponent's sudden flash and the previous fists that bombarded his giant sword actually made his arms somewhat faint due to the rebound of strength. Numbness, which made Bateau couldn't help but feel a little fear in his heart. Carrot, are you okay? The boy ignored Bader's shout, but turned around and looked at Carrot, who was lying there with a chest injury. When he turned his right hand, a bottle of healing potion had appeared in his hands. Jason, after seeing the face of the figure who saved him from Bader's giant sword, Carrot's eyes suddenly widened, and his face was full of shock and surprise. He never expected that the person who suddenly appeared to save him was his roommate Jason from the Sith Spiritual Power Academy. However, look at this, puh. After arriving at Jason, the first thing Carrot did was not to take the healing potion from Jason's hand. Instead, he quickly patrolled the mountain forest. After discovering that, except for Jason, there was no one in the entire mountain forest. After others. Carrot's face, which originally showed a trace of joy because he was rescued, was suddenly filled with worry, and he said anxiously, Jason, please leave quickly and leave me alone. This Bateau is a high-level spiritual master, and the other three are also low-level. Healer, you are no match for them, please leave quickly. With that said, Carrot, who had regained a little strength, struggled to prop up his body, staggered to Jason, gritted his teeth and said, Jason, go quickly, I will stop them, you are not their opponent. If you become stronger in the future, come and avenge me. In Carrot's heart, Jason was promoted to a first-level low-level spiritual disciple at about the same time as himself last year. During the year of graduation, he practiced hard. This is only a second-level low-level spiritual warrior. As for Jason, in the academy, although his strength improved by leaps and bounds after breaking through the 6th level of spiritual power, and he was promoted to a first-level low-level spiritual disciple in just 1 or 2 months, and Jason's training was much harder than his own, but no matter how strong he is probably about the same as himself now. At most, he is at the level of a second-level spiritual warrior. He will never be much more powerful than himself. In front of such a group of third-level spiritual masters, Jason had no chance of winning. Carrot couldn't help but feel pain in his heart when he thought that he would implicate his brother Jason. However, Jason didn't listen to him at all. Instead, he grabbed his shoulder and placed the healing potion in front of him. I'm sorry, I'm late. Jason whispered, and suddenly smiled, with a ferocious and fierce look like a hungry wolf in his smile. He looked at Carrot with a soft look in his eyes. With a hint of solemnity, he said softly, if you are a brother, drink it and then sit aside. Don't worry, I will take the lives of these guys for you today. Carrot opened his mouth and wanted to say what, but after seeing Jason's solemn and confident eyes, Carrot couldn't help but took the healing potion in Jason's hand and stepped aside. Jason nodded at Carrot and immediately walked up to Bader. His face, which originally had a handsome smile, suddenly became as ferocious as Ashura walking out of hell, and his eyes were as cold as the ice of Joyo. Looking coldly at Ba-Tua standing in front of him, Ba-Tua couldn't help but feel chills in his heart. Boy, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business, so as not to make yourself angry. There was a fierce look on Ba-Tua's face, and he shouted loudly. He couldn't help tightening the hilt of the sword in his right hand, and said in his mouth, feeling a little dry. The young man in front of him obviously seemed to be about the same age as Carrot, but for some reason, under the other man's gaze, Bateau couldn't help but feel a trace of fear in his heart. Even when faced with anger before, as one of the 4, Bateau didn't feel this way when he was the leader of Raditz, a high-level spiritual master. Anyone who dares to touch my brother will die. A flash of light suddenly flashed across Jason's eyes, and he stepped hard on the ground. As an energy explosion sounded, where the sole of his foot left the ground, there suddenly appeared he fell into a deep pit, and under the agitation of spiritual power, the soil and rotten leaves scattered in all directions. As soon as the explosion sounded, Jason's body almost turned into a black lightning, rushing towards Bader in front of him, and a powerful wave of spiritual power swept out of Jason's body. "Brothers, everyone come together." Feeling this powerful force, Batuo's pupils suddenly shrank sharply, and he shouted loudly. The spiritual power in his body surged out again. He unleashed all his momentum, aimed at the Jason who was coming so fast in front of him, and struck down hard with his sword. The powerful energy roared like a tiger descending from the mountain, and was about to tear the Jason who was shooting in front of him into countless pieces. Behind him, Carrot's heart suddenly rose to his throat. Death. Jason's eyes flashed, and a soul wave shot out of his eyes like lightning, directly entering Nebatar's mind. Batuo's mind suddenly became confused. Although it was only for a moment, when he came back to his senses, he only saw a fist emitting terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations, getting bigger and bigger in front of him. In an instant, all the hairs on Batuo's body stood up straight, and a feeling of heart palpitations suddenly enveloped his whole body. Boom! Amidst the huge roar, the giant sword in Batuo's hand was thrown heavily into the sky. His mouth opened wide, his eyes widened, and his expression revealed deep disbelief. On his chest, the chest that was originally covered by thick spiritual power has now completely turned into a ball of charred black. There is a big black hole in his chest. Looking at it, everything in the hole is turned into nothingness. On his pale face, a trace of blood slowly flowed from the corner of his mouth. When Big Brother saw this situation, an angry roar suddenly came from the side. The bodies of the three adventurers who were rubbing up suddenly accelerated, their angry eyes almost spitting out fire, and the long sword in their hands. On the sword, spiritual power flowed, and the roaring sound broke through the air, almost tearing a huge gap in the air. The three long swords wrapped Jason's figure in the shape of a pin. They were cleverly connected to each other. It was obvious that the three of them practiced together frequently and were extremely experienced. Jason suddenly turned around, a sneer appeared on the slightly raised corners of his mouth. As his body swayed, the spiritual power in his body burst out instantly. Wherever his feet stepped on, huge potholes appeared on the ground, causing the ground couldn't help but tremble slightly. Just when the three long swords were about to stab Jason, in the horrified gazes of the three people, Jason's body suddenly made a strange arc, and suddenly jumped into the air. A blue-purple streak of the lightning wings instantly stretched out from Jason's back, and with the sound of roaring thunderstorms, Jason was shot down hard. This Emperor Spirit Master? No flying skill. The three adventurers had a horrified look on their faces for a moment, and hurriedly backed away. Jason's eyes flashed with light, he curled his fingers into claws, and with a burst of spiritual energy, he directly bombarded one of the three adventurers. The adventurer let out a scream, as if he had been hit by a large container truck at high speed. He fell heavily and flew out. In midair, flesh and blood flew everywhere, and blood spurted out from his mouth. After being thrown for more than 10 meters, like a rag bag falling to the ground, making a dull sound, and there was no movement anymore. Run away quickly. The moment he saw the opponent, he killed Batuo, the eldest brother of the third-level senior spiritual master. He also broke the combined attack technique of the three of himself and killed another teammate. The remaining three adventurers were the two people who stood down, suddenly felt extremely fearful in their hearts. The spiritual power in their bodies was instantly injected into their feet, and they quickly flew towards the distance. Want to leave? Jason sneered, and with the wings of lightning fluttering, he rushed behind an adventurer and smashed the opponent to pieces with one punch. No saw his teammates dying in front of him one after another, and the thunder wings behind Jason that kept making thunderous explosions. Knowing that he could not escape, the last adventurer suddenly stopped, knelt down with a bang, and wailed, "Sir, don't kill me, I was forced, don't kill me." At this moment, there was no longer any anger in the adventurer's heart, but only incomparable fear. Knowing that he could not resist and could not escape, he had no choice but to beg for mercy. In the face of life, he abandoned his dignity as a spiritual master, and his heart was filled with regret. Spare you? A faint smile appeared on Jason's face. Sir, don't kill me. As long as you don't kill me, I'm willing to work for you. The adventurer kept wailing and kowtowing hard. In front of Jason, he couldn't resist at all. Idea. Jason chuckled, a hint of disdain quietly flashed through his eyes, and his palm fell suddenly. Bang! The adventurer couldn't help but trembled. His body trembled violently. The original wailing sound suddenly stopped, and then the body fell heavily. From hunter to prey, it often only takes a blink of an eye. Previously, they were still chasing Carrot with great interest, and their hearts were full of joy. However, a moment later, they have all turned into nothing. The corpse of life. Looking down at his bloody hands, Jason couldn't help but chuckle. Since his rebirth, Jason has been practicing continuously. Now, facing a high-level spiritual master and 3 low-level spiritual masters, Jason used his own power to easily defeat the enemy without the assistance of spiritual potions. Even the spirit ring was not displayed, but it gave Jason an inexplicable feeling in his heart. Jason thought about how dangerous it was when he faced the 4 spiritual master-level leaders of the Mad Wolf Adventure Group last year. He tried every means, even taking a large amount of spiritual potions and poisons, and finally defeated the 4. All of them were killed, but now, all along, Jason has been moving forward towards his goal, never letting up. Now, he is gradually becoming a strong man. Jason this not far away, Carrot, leaning against a big tree, was watching all this blankly. His face was filled with incomparable horror. Previously, after taking the healing potion given by Jason, he had just time to pick up the long sword that he had thrown away earlier. Before he could step forward to help Jason, he realized that except for him and Jason, there was no one in the entire forest except him and Jason. There was no longer a living person. He is very familiar with Bateau and others, but he clearly knows how powerful Bateau is as a 3rd-level senior spiritual master. However, now, he has turned into a corpse lying there with eyes wide open. Carrot, who had been extremely worried about Jason and faced death, was so shocked after seeing this situation that it was difficult to express in words. Carrot, why are you here? Who are they? Why are they chasing you? After wiping the blood on his hands, Jason walked over and asked Carrot. Carrot suddenly woke up from the shock, and immediately said hurriedly on his face, Jason, what level are you at now? Why? Carrot stared at Jason in front of him, his eyes showing a trace of emotion. A strong look of anticipation. Equal level? Jason was stunned. Although he didn't know why Carrot suddenly asked this, he still replied, 3rd-level intermediate spiritual master. 3rd-level intermediate spiritual master? Carrot's face, which was expecting so much, suddenly darkened, and there was a trace of pain in his eyes. He clenched his fists tightly, and his nails dug deeply into his palms. Carrot, what happened? Jason said solemnly. Carrot punched the big tree on the side hard. He did not use any spiritual power. His right fist was suddenly bloody under this blow. However, he was completely unaware and said with tears in his eyes, Weishur City, not far away, is my hometown. Weishur City is a typical city of adventurers, and my father is Raditz, the leader of the Sherbois Adventure Group, one of the 3 major adventure groups in Weishur City. After I graduated from the Sith Spiritual Power Academy, I returned to my father's adventure group. However, a few days ago, Commander Blue from the Lord's Palace of Weishur City wanted to take control of all the adventure groups in Weishur City and bring them under his control. Naturally, my father was unwilling to do so, and as a result at this point, a line of tears fell from the corners of Carrot's eyes, and he choked up. Today, Brew led a group of soldiers and the soldiers have succumbed to Brew's coercion. The other 2 adventure groups of Weishur City, the Hunting Adventure Group and the Tiafa Adventure Group, came together to try to get my father under his command. Naturally, my father was unwilling. Before the battle, he secretly sent someone to send me away in advance. I came out, but I didn't expect that Nabata would betray my father, so at this point, Carrot was already crying. He clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes revealed the light of hatred. The reason why he escaped was not because he was afraid of dying in battle, but because he understood that one person must survive in order to avenge his father and the entire Sherbwa adventure group. The man did not shed tears easily, but he had not reached the sad point. Today? Hearing this, Jason's face was suddenly startled and he said, "Then why are you still standing there? Take me there quickly." No, Carrot shook his head and said, "Jason, the leader of the Iron Magic Adventure Group, Faili, is a 4th-level intermediate spiritual master. The leader of the Hunting Adventure Group is a 4th-level senior level, just like my father. Heavenly Spirit Master, and more importantly, Nabulu is the #1 master in Waysher City and a 5th-level intermediate sect spiritual master. When we go back, we will." Carrot's face was full of pain, although he really wanted to save his father, but knowing the strength of the other party, he knew that it would not help Jason if they went back. If he continued, his life would be in vain, and Jason would also be put in danger. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Jason couldn't help but shouted, "Carrot, lead the way, Wayne, go, take us to Waysher City." Before Carrot could react, suddenly, a big hand like iron cuffs, Carrot's shoulders were firmly grasped. Immediately, Carrot felt himself constantly flying into the sky. The huge strong wind kept whistling in his ears, like 10,000 horses galloping. What's going on? Carrot was shocked and turned around with difficulty, only to see that he was being held tightly by an expressionless middle-aged man, flying far away in the forest. On top of it, Jason was also holding it in the man's other hand. "Tell me, which direction is Waysher City?" the middle-aged man said indifferently. Then, there under the man's majestic voice, Carrot subconsciously pointed in the direction of Waysher City. Waysher City. Wayne nodded, suddenly burst out with a shocking roar, and then flew towards the direction of Waysher City like lightning. Wayne's voice rumbled over the mountain forest and spread far and wide. However, the strange thing was that Carrot's ears, which were in Wayne's hands, did not receive the slightest vibration.